Hello everybody. Today I'm with Corinne. We are going to have an interview about the first years of the YEN. Hi Corinne.
Hello.
It's very nice to be with you here in Tunis. That's really a pleasure. I'm going to ask you some questions about the very beginning of the Youth Express network. And my first one will be, how did you meet YEN?
I met Yen before it was Yen.
Okay.
I was in a pilot training course with the Council of Europe on project management, and I was doing an exchange between Mount La Jolie with very difficult social issue with young people, and Spain with high unemployment. Then through this training course, I started an internship at the Youth Directorate, and coming out of the first pilot training course and the second where I was, a group of social workers proposed to do a seminar about social work in Europe. And we did a meeting where the idea to create a platform came. We were working days and nights.
Okay.
And in '92, after several meetings, we did the first meeting with social workers and young people.
Interesting. Why did you become a board member, and what did you want to bring to the board actually?
At the beginning, to become a board member was natural because we were not a lot of people.
Okay.
So I think the active people became the board.
Automatically.
Kind of automatically. I don't remember how many we were, but maybe 5, 7. It's far away. And we were doing a bit of everything. I was, because I was intern at the Council of Europe, I could help to make connection with some other organization, with the people in the Council of Europe to see how we want to continue.
Okay.
And I help also to make a kind of newspaper to inform the people who have been in meetings what we were doing and so on.
Okay, kind of information for the people who are following
you.
Yes,
to try to develop the network, to expand, to make known what we are doing.
To highlight what you were doing.
And also the first activity were clearly showing that there is a lot of similarities in the needs and the work done, but there is also a lot of differences. So people were discovering that maybe between France and Russia there was a lot the same problem, but handling differently or the same. So how to capitalize this experience, how to from one experience there to help here and so on.
Okay. And during your time as a board member, do you remember any special moments that you want to highlight or to mention? Any special projects, any challenges that you could overcome?
Actually, I was not so long as a board member because I started to work in the Council of Europe in '93. So because of my work there, I couldn't be so much involved in the network for ethical reasons.
Okay.
I think really the challenge at the beginning was from ideas, from this first meeting where people, there was really people thirsty to discover, to learn from each other, to do things together, how to put this together, and from ideas of few people create a platform. And how also, I think one of the challenges at least for me, even when I was not a board member, but following the idea, the project, was always how to keep the balance between the young people, supposedly with some problem in society, and the social worker. How to always have these two groups together or in activities and so on, because I mean the concern of the social worker at the beginning to exchange and so on was important, but also to give the floor to the young people was also important to have.
That will be our next question. Actually, how do you see the role of board members, and do you think it's important to involve young people in this organization, let me say?
I think what was nice in the board, where maybe not when I was, because at the beginning was really leaders and workers, but after there has always been attention to bring also young people in the board. I remember, maybe the first one was Mojca from Croatia, I think. So it was always important to bring them. I think it's because, I mean, in any organization, not only the network, it helps to keep the floor on the ground, to keep track of what is going on, the trends, to be up to date, and to have an idea what the young people would like.
Yes, to keep in touch with what is going on outside.
Inshallah, yes.
Okay, so now we want to know what are you doing in life, and has your passage in Youth Express Network any impact in your professional path?
It's difficult to say because I was already kind of starting where I am now. When I did my training course and the internship, I was not a social worker. I was not even in social work. I was volunteer training leaders for work camps in small villages in France. But because of some opportunities and some problems in France in that period in the 90s, the project I proposed to do the training course was to work on these social issues where our work camp organization was challenged, and the government in France was asking any kind of youth organization to do something with these young people. So my organization decided to enter it with my project. And not with my project, but my project was entering it. So I was doing my project, and the idea of YEN started at this time. So I got more interested about marginalization, exclusion, young people with problems, and really much how to give another vision. And then I started to work in the Council of Europe in the Youth Center. My interest was always with this kind of groups. So I work with disabled, I work with refugees, I work with minorities and so on. And when I left Council of Europe, I was doing some freelance work, the same, sometimes with this kind of project with intercultural learning on how to valorize local project. I did once training for social worker with the Ministry of Justice in France to speak about fundraising, European project, exchange, how they can benefit from it. So I stayed in this, and I went to Congo as a UN volunteer for the election in 2004-2005.
Yeah, that's
In terms of social exclusion and development and so on was a big point, and then you really see another part of poverty and so on. When I came back, I worked again a bit as a freelance. Then I was working 1 year in UNV headquarters in Bonn, recruiting volunteers for the HCR. So I turned my hat. And after that, I was 7 years in Alexandria, working for the Annalyn Foundation for almost 6 years.
And now you're in Tunisia.
And now I'm in Tunisia for 2 years. I came to work with artist organization, but a bit back to social work. Because the organization is doing contemporary art in the Medina of Tunis to promote access to art to people who are not used to art. So it's to bring arts where it's not used to be, and to try to raise awareness to people with disadvantaged background that they can also access art. And the organization is doing project with children, education and so on. I left the organization in August, but this is what I was doing. And now I'm coming back to France after all these years, where I want to work as a consultant, hopefully still a bit part in MENA region, in Arab countries, but also in France, and God knows. People advise me that I could do a lot of things with refugees, with social exclusion, so I don't know.
It was really a big pleasure to be with you and to talk to you today.
Thank
you so much for your time and for your pieces of information. It's really interesting to hear from you.